have now seen Wicked 3 times. I love Wicked. So I never saw the actual play. It is one that I wanted to see. A friend of mine introduced me to the Broadway soundtrack, and I fell in love with it, but it also just made me so curious about the play itself. To my understanding, there are actual videos of the entire play. So all this time, I could have just watched it online somewhere. But anyways, I have been very excited about this movie. Now, the first time I saw it was in 3D and in 4DX, and then I saw it 2 more times on a regular screen. So I will just start there. I think that the 3D effect was pretty good. The 4DX effect could have been a little bit better. There were a lot of overhead scenes where I felt like my seat should have been moving a little bit more. I just feel like it could have been a bit of a better 4DX experience. I love 4DX. The last 4DX I saw before this was Return of the King. Oh my god, it was incredible. Oh, it was incredible. All those beautiful overhead shots. Your seat is moving as if you are in the camera, like filming the footage. It's incredible. And there were a lot of missed opportunities I felt with the 4DX for Wicked. So Wicked is often described as a fan fiction of The Wizard of Oz, basically giving a backstory to the characters. Now, this movie is part 1. There is going to be a second part, which kind of surprised a lot of people because the entire play in itself is just over 2 hours. The first movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it's just the first part. But that being said, I do want to defend that just a little bit. There's a lot more that you can do with a movie than you can do with just a stage. I think if you're going to go the route of making it a movie, then you should pull out all the stops. You should do what you can to make these incredible sets and to just make it a true cinematic experience. And I think they did a good job at that. Most of this story in part 1 is basically Glinda telling the story of how she met Elphaba in school, how they were not friends at all at first, how they became roommates, and then how they eventually developed a friendship. I will say, as someone who never saw the play, the story does feel odd to me at times. Like the idea that the Wicked Witch of the West is really someone who is not really that wicked. I just have trouble wrapping my mind around that, so I'm kind of curious to see what happens in part 2, because all I can think about when we're talking about, oh, she's not that wicked, is the Wicked Witch of the West having Dorothy locked away in that room saying that she's gonna kill her so she can take her ruby slipper. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that feels kind of wicked to me. Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe there's something I don't get here. I really liked the story. Oz is just a very magical world, and it's just such a fun, colorful movie to watch. The performances in this movie are absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I absolutely love it. The person I want to shout out the most on acting skill alone was Michelle Yeoh. Oh my goodness. So incredible. So amazing. And so many subtleties in her acting that are just so relevant to her character. Just absolutely amazing. Jeff Goldblum as the wizard was, I think, fun to watch. The little song he did was not all that special, and I think was really just there to show how two-faced he can be. But I definitely enjoyed his performance. Cynthia Erivo was absolutely incredible in this. I think Jonathan Bailey was absolutely perfect to play Fiyero. And Ariana Grande, I do not understand her getting some flack for her performance in this. I've seen some reviews saying that, you know, Glinda is supposed to be kind of a comedic character, and Ariana was not that comedic. I thought she hit all her points just fine. I thought she was funny and enjoyable to watch. But a lot of people took issue with her singing. She does not sound better or worse than Kristen Chenoweth to me. I'm not that much of a critic when it comes to singing specifically, so maybe I'm just not the best person to give this kind of commentary. But I thought she did a fantastic job with this. Cynthia sang her songs, well, most of Cynthia's songs are belting out these lyrics, and that's just not the same for Glinda. Most of her her singing is softer or is in these higher notes. Like that's the material she was given. I don't understand the critique there. And before I get into the characters, I just want to talk a little bit about the incredible sets on this movie. One criticism that was given for the Emerald City in particular is that it does not look polished enough. And I kind of side with the director on that. It should look a little bit lived in, it should look a little bit used. And for people who want to point to The Wizard of Oz, well, The Wizard of Oz is presented as this whole thing was a dream. And you're not just told that at the end. You know from the beginning that she goes into Oz, that she is unconscious, and this is happening in her head. This is presented as if Oz is real, and all of it is real. So I think it's perfectly fine for it to be a little bit less perfect and less polished because it's real. It should have a more realistic tone to it. I think in order to appreciate Munchkinland in this movie, that's another aspect of the classic Wizard of Oz movie that you have to kind of separate yourself from in order to be able to see it. Because the first time I saw it, like, it looked kind of laughable to me. Now, the original movie used a combination of little people and kids, but instead, the people that make up a Munchkinland are essentially your average short person, which is not the same thing. So that threw me off a little bit. The way Munchkinland looked was a bit odd to me. They still did I felt, a decent job with it as far as making it this odd little fairy tale town. I would describe the songs in this movie and the characters of this movie as just being a lot of fun. This is just such an enjoyable musical to watch. There's a lot of attention to detail. It's such a fun journey to watch. I cannot remember the last time I had this much fun watching a movie that I immediately wanted to watch it again. I think Fiyero is one of the most fun characters because, like, he's known for being this super fun guy who doesn't really care about anything, and all he cares about is having fun and dancing through life and things of that nature. But then he does have this other side to him where he really does have a bit of a bleeding heart, and he does care about these things that are very important to him. And on top of that, he has feelings for Glinda, but he also admires Elphaba in ways that he could never admire Glinda. And seeing all of that presented was a lot of fun to watch. As far as Glinda's character, I do wish she was a bit less of an airhead. I suppose that's very much a part of the story. And I get that that's kind of the comedic role that she's supposed to bring to the table. And watching her change through her friendship with Elphaba is good. I would like to see what they do with it in part 2. But I will say with Glinda in particular, I much more enjoy her singing and her antics during those singing performances than just a lot of her speaking lines. I don't think she dropped the ball with her comedic timing. I think she was on point. But I really enjoyed her musical performances in this movie. Elphaba is such a fun character to watch. Watching Elphaba and her character development through her friendship with Glinda was just a lot of fun to see. I absolutely love this musical. I think it's very well done. Everything from the musical numbers to the vocal performances to the actors, the casting is on point. And I think it's very rare for a movie so highly anticipated to hit all of its points this well. As I said before, I cannot remember the last time I watched a movie and enjoyed the entire movie this much. Well, almost the entire movie this much. My rating for this movie is 5 out of 5 stars. It is an excellent, excellent movie. But I do have a couple of pet peeves I want to address. They're not enough to make me take away any points from the rating. Just a few things I want to mention, and at this point, there will be some spoilers. So, there's a pivotal moment where Elphaba and Glinda's relationship starts to change. So basically, Glinda invites Elphaba to this party and gives her a really ugly hat that she knows everyone's going to make fun of her for wearing. Elphaba is touched by this move and doesn't see it as anything bad and goes to Madame Morrible and wants Glinda to get to take the classes just like she does. Elphaba shows up to the dance and is immediately mocked by pretty much everyone, and Glinda feels awful about it because she just found out what Elphaba did for her to kind of return the favor. So Elphaba goes to the dance floor and starts doing the dance everyone else was doing in extremely painfully slow motion, while everyone still continues to laugh at her. Eventually Glinda goes out there and starts doing it with her, and that's the turning point where everything changes. From the moment Elphaba enters that room to the moment everyone joins Elphaba and Glinda in dancing, my god, it feels like a 50-minute sequence. Holy crap. By no means would I argue that that scene should be removed from the movie. It's one of the most pivotal moments in the movie. So of course it's an important plot point. Of course it should be included. But my God, did it have to be that slow? It did not. It did not have to be that slow. And I think the point was just the cinematic effects. And I think the point was really just the drama. I think you were really just supposed to be pulled into this very somber and emotional moment between these two characters. But for me, it was just like, can we please move on? Like, I get it. Okay, they become friends. Like, show it faster. It really made me tune out as a viewer. And that's really the only portion of this movie that I tuned out at all. So for those who say that, like, this movie was too long, especially if it's just the first act of the musical, that's a portion where we definitely could have cut down some time. You still could have made the same point. It still could have been a very touching moment without that much time being taken. That being said, there is another scene in this movie that a lot of people are heavily criticizing that I will defend till the day I die. Okay? And it is the ending of the movie. So a lot of folks say that Defying Gravity was interrupted too many times. I would agree to an extent. Them going up in the balloon when it obviously wasn't going to work was a bit of a distraction. That's something that could have been cut. But as far as there being a lot of dialogue and plot points during the singing, that's just something that's very common in musicals. That's one of my biggest complaints about them, because if there's a scene that you really, really love, it's interrupted by all this dialogue. And some of that stuff, even if there's a soundtrack version you can listen to, some of that dialogue and stuff is still in there. And so you can't just sing the song and enjoy the song. That being said, the dialogue that, to my understanding, was added for this number, I don't think took away from the story at all. I think that's something that you just have to accept if you're watching a musical. There's going to be singing and talking. And sometimes those things will be taking place at the same time or amongst each other, you know? So for example, where Glinda is talking to Elphaba and asking her not to use the curse that eventually helps her to fly, because she doesn't actually know what she's reading. That was very relevant to the conflict that was taking place at that point. Now, if there was some dialogue thrown in that was not relevant to what was going on, I would absolutely agree with you. But I think that was a very relevant point that did interrupt, yes, Defying Gravity, which is one of the greatest musical songs ever. But there is something I disagree with. Right in the middle of the best parts of Defying Gravity, you see everyone in town bustling around and listening to Michelle's second speech, and it's the same speech. She gave the same speech earlier, calling Elphaba a wicked witch, calling her a fugitive, calling her an enemy that must be captured. You know, she's evil, she stole our grimoire, etc., etc. We've already heard that speech. That's the problem I have with hearing it during Defying Gravity. If I hadn't heard it the first time, it might have been very impactful. It might have been, oh wow, I can't believe she's saying these things. These are such shocking words to hear. But I've already heard the speech. I've already heard the speech and listened to Elphaba hear it, and only those words, and take all of those words in. Hearing it a second time to interrupt one of the greatest musical songs of all time, that was not necessary. That was not in any way, at all, necessary. And then we get to the final few seconds, as Defying Gravity is basically ending. So the camera pulls back and you see this cape, and it's this perfect image of the witch with this massive cape behind her, and those final few notes of Defying Gravity from Cynthia, which she absolutely slaughtered, by the way. I've heard so many people say it should have ended right there. It should have ended right there. What are you talking about? I am so grateful for those next several seconds. Having the camera pull back and seeing her with a cape and then seeing To Be Continued, I think would have been so unsatisfying. Is it an iconic image? Yes, absolutely, but I want to see her flying away. I want to see her getting away. I love the fact that we see that. I love that we see the camera at her face with the cape flying behind her. I love that the camera goes to the side of her face. I love the beating of the drums and that last and all those moments, and then seeing her flying up before you see To Be Continued. That's perfect. Perfect cinematography. I don't know what you people are talking about. That was perfect. That was the perfect ending for this movie. I am so happy with that ending. This may be the most strongly I have disagreed with someone else's opinion about a movie. Those final seconds were perfect. They were flawless. It was true cinematography. It was what the endings of this type of movie should be. This was filmmaking at its finest, and you're going to criticize it because what? The cape image of her is more memeable? Like, grow up. That is all I have for this video. If you enjoyed this video, half this video, or even just a quarter of this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe.